Hello explorers, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to another exciting and informative video on our YouTube channel. If you are joining us for the first time, we want to thank you for watching. In this episode, we shall be examining the background of the racist Tunisian president. We will explore this like never before seen. We will dive deep into his economic performance in Tunisia, why this particular leader has subjected black Africans in the continent of Africa for racist remarks and showing total racism with regards to who they are. Black Africans have been subjected to discrimination and racism around the world, but if it's coming from an African country, it leaves lots of people around the world and across the continent to scratch their head. In this episode, we will look at this like never before seen, so we encourage you to watch this video to the end for clarity and better understanding. We have made lots of videos on this particular channel. If you are new here, we encourage you to check the entire channel for you to see more exciting and educating content regards to the global African perspective. Without any more delay, let's just dive straight into it.
So Tunisia's President Kais Saied is under fire once again after he made comments about African migrants. He said there's a plot to replace Tunisia's Arab and Islamic identity by bringing people from other countries in the region. Well, the president made the controversial remarks on Thursday. Here's some of what he had to say.
To all leaders at every level, look after our brothers from Sub Saharan Africa who are in a legal situation. This is a matter of state. It must take its responsibilities. There is no question of allowing anyone in any illegal situation to stay in Tunisia. There is a state and institutions. It is a file prepared with the objective of changing the demographic makeup of Tunisia.
According to the racist Tunisian president, Saied, who made this comment by saying that hundreds of irregular migrants from Sub-Saharan Africa had come to Tunisia with all their violence, crime, and unacceptable practices that entails, he said this was an unnatural situation to change the demographic makeup and turn Tunisia into just another African country that doesn't belong to the Arab and Islamic nations anymore. If you listen to things like this coming from a leader who himself is a dictator, who has subjected his people to suffering and damaged the economy of Tunisia, then you begin to imagine to blame it to someone else. From such performance, low-class performance of a leader who particularly choose a certain group of people because of their color to subject them to racism, you want to look at his performance. This man has dragged down the economy of Tunisia. The Tunisian people are suffering. If you look at different figures, considering the performance of his tenure as a leader in Tunisia, you begin to realize that he has mismanaged the Tunisian economy, dragged the country into mud in terms of performance. Tunisia is struggling at the moment. The country's economy is in total shambles. The Tunisian economy has gone from bad to worse in recent years, battered by a series of challenges, from heavy indebtedness to diminished output. While the economy has struggled since the Arab Spring uprising of 2011, its problems have been greatly exacerbated by the pandemic and President Said's power grab, undoing a state institution. Following a 9.2% contraction in GDP in 2020, the worst in the MENA region, Tunisia rebounds slightly in 2021, growing by 2.9%, while inflation reached 6.5%. Unemployment has soared to nearly 18.5% as of the third quarter of 2021, looking at figures. And disruptions in global markets and Russia's recent invasion of Ukraine have further strained the already hard-hit economy. If you look at a leader who cannot lead his people, who cannot provide jobs for its own people, you begin to look at the scapegoat. He decided that the black Africans are the scapegoat in the current situation. Just look at the performance. As a country that has been struggling over the years, Tunisia's economic performance has been called out by different professionals and is totally zero. Meanwhile, Tunisia faces a dire economic predicament. Public sector spending, largely due to pensions and salaries and government subsidies, consumers and state budget. According to the World Bank, public debt as of 2020 was over 70% of gross domestic product. current debt levels could be much higher. In the absence of the robust and well-regulated private sector, Tunisia have long rallied on the states as a provider of jobs and subsidies, goods and services, creating an unstable economic imbalance. Previous governments have been reluctant to address public sector spending, fearing it could prompt widespread protest led by the country's powerful Tunisian General Labour Union and disrupt Tunisia's fragile economy.
Many have strongly condemned the comments as racist and xenophobic. Hundreds of people protested in the capital Tunis to denounce discrimination and express solidarity with the migrants.
I told them clearly that if we have castrated their voices, there are 1,000 voices that rise to demand rights.
Today I came to the demonstration to say no to racism and fascism, and to say that Tunisia is an African country and land, and that all Africans are welcome.
So if you see a leader who cannot lead his country, who cannot develop the basic infrastructure, who cannot lead democratically, have decided to turn his attention to black Africans who are actually looking for nothing other than having basic food stuff or to live in the country, who are not posing any threat to Tunisian people. Let's look at the Tunisian president's performance with regards to his operations as a leader in Tunisia. The President Saied, who was elected in 2019, seized most powers in 2021 by shutting down the elected parliament and replacing the government before moving to rule by decree and rewriting the constitution. Critics say that Saied has dismantled the democracy and freedom won in 2011 revolution that triggered the Arab Spring. In recent weeks, police have started to crack down on opposition groups that accuse him of a coup, detaining politicians, labor union figures, judges, and prominent businessmen and head of independent radio station. This guy is a dictator, and he should be called on what it is. By channeling his frustration and failures to the African migrants, it gives you an indication that this is not a one-off stuff. It's been planned, and he's a racist. Saied has denied mounting a coup, saying his actions were legal and necessary to save Tunisia from years of chaos, and has denounced his opponents as traitors, criminals, and terrorists. He has responded to expression of concerns at his moves by the United States and European Parliament by denouncing them as foreign interference and attacks on Tunisian sovereignty.
Opponents say the comments are a distraction from a worsening economy and growing government crackdown against critics. The African Union says the president's statement amounts to racialized hate speech. Thousands of African migrants travel through Tunisia on their way to attempt the dangerous crossing to Europe.
When you look at a leader, again, it goes back to how some African leaders think. When they cannot pull it out, when they cannot deliver for their people, when they cannot meet the basic necessities that their people need, they will turn their attention to Western countries. So this is a classic example of a failed leader, a leader who cannot pull it for his people, a leader who cannot lead, a leader who thinks he is an actual dictator. Let's call it on what it is. Some of the evidence presented against those arrested in recent weeks and held in pre-trial detention on charges of conspiracy and against the state security, that where they have also met with French or American diplomats. This guy has proven that we do have lots of professionals or leaders in the region who are moving to the right direction. Saied is a typical racist, and he has demonstrated that publicly. By him doing this, he's trying to play the race card. The race card is not going to work here. This guy is a total racist. The Tunisian economy has performed extremely dire in his regime, and he lacks vision for his people. When you lack vision, when you lack focus, when you lack strategic move, when you lack economic development or ideas to scale and develop your society, then the next thing you need to do is to focus that on a scapegoat. In this case, the black Africans who are migrating in Tunisia for whatever aspect, for normal migration, it turned out to them. If a leader of this stature clearly comes out and makes such a speech, when you think about speech writers, for those of you who are professionals around the world, writing a speech is not like a walk in the park. If you're able to write a speech and you sit there and put those words together, Writing a speech is not just like writing a mail letter. You are trying to communicate a message. You are trying to send a policy statement out there. You are trying to reach out to your people. You are trying to inform your people with regards to states and things within running through the government. If a leader comes out and clearly make a racist statement and remarks, then he should be taken as to what he is. He is a clear racist in the continent, and the African people should be very careful and be aware of such a leader. He is a typical racist in the continent who've been hiding under his people, and as a result of the poor performance, his dictatorial approaches, and his disdain for his country's performance, and the view that Western countries are the ones who are trying to bring him down, the common narrative that we've heard about in the region. This guy should be called to question. He is a shame to the Tunisian people. He's a disgrace to the Tunisian people, and he's a disgrace to the African continent. We want to thank you for watching. Hopefully we've informed you with regards to this disgraceful leader in Tunisia, someone who cannot run his country and he's decided to put the blame on African migrants. We cannot sit behind and see such people moving the continent forward. If this is what African leaders or African presidents will consider themselves being in the clique and thinking that their own countries are much better than others, then I think that the African Union should call this guy to order. We want to thank you for watching. We're looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.